There are moments in life when the air itself seems to tremble with a secret, when a whisper moves through your spirit and you sense, without knowing how, that you are standing at the edge of something vast. This is not the common pulse of daily existence, but a rare signal, a frequency that slips through the noise and announces itself only to those who are ready to hear. Today, we explore what I call the rare awakening signal that separates chosen ones from the rest. Before we go deeper into this hidden current of life, I invite you to stay until the end of this journey, because what I share with you here may shift the very ground of your perception. And if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you do so now, because this path we are walking is not a single story. It is a series of keys, and each new key builds upon the last. To miss one is to miss the architecture of the hidden design. The rare awakening signal is not like thunder, not like lightning. It is quieter, subtler, yet infinitely more powerful. Imagine the stillness of a forest before dawn. The animals are hidden. The night is heavy, but then, just before the first light breaks, you hear a single bird singing. One note carried through the dark, announcing a dawn that has not yet arrived. That is what the signal feels like. It appears before the world itself seems to shift, and those who hear it find themselves summoned into a life they did not choose, but which has somehow always chosen them. For some, this moment comes like an earthquake, ripping apart the illusions of who they thought they were. For others, it comes like a subtle knocking, a dream that repeats, a phrase that lingers in the mind, or a sudden recognition in the eyes of a stranger. Yet, for all, the experience is the same. Reality is revealed as a layered thing, a stage where behind the curtain something more eternal, more luminous, more terrifyingly alive is waiting. Why is this signal rare? Because it is not designed for everyone at the same time. Humanity moves like a great river, but even within that flow, certain individuals are called to rise out of the current, to walk upon the river's surface, to glimpse what the rest cannot see. These are the chosen ones. Not in the sense of superiority or privilege, but in the sense of responsibility. They are chosen because they hold within them a resonance that responds to the signal, just as a tuning fork begins to hum when struck by a sound that matches its frequency. The rest of the world goes on, unaware. The hum of consumer life, the chatter of trivialities, the dull repetition of routines, all these act like static, drowning out the signal. Most people hear nothing beyond the clamor of survival, the demands of society, the endless scroll of distraction. But those
awakening
marked by
signal
destiny
is not a single
hear
event.
differently. It is an
They can
initiation.
detect
The faint pattern
It does not
beneath
merely
the
reveal
chaos.
truth,
The voice
it demands
beneath
transformation.
And
It
when they
pulls
do,
you out of your
life is
sleepwalking
never
and
the same
insists that you
again. Confront both the brilliance and the shadow within yourself. It tells you that you are not just another wanderer in the crowd, but a carrier of light, a bearer of truth, a seed of something ancient reborn in a new era. To hear it is to become unsettled, to become restless, to become unable to return to the half-life you once accepted. There is a reason why mystics across time have spoken of visions, voices, dreams, and symbols. There is a reason why prophets, poets, and revolutionaries alike seem marked by an invisible fire. They have heard the signal. They may not have called it by that name, but they recognized its rhythm. It is the same rhythm that caused Moses to turn toward the burning bush, that made Siddhartha leave his palace, that led countless unnamed souls to walk away from the life they knew and into the wilderness of truth. But here's the paradox. The awakening signal is both universal and deeply personal. It is universal in that it speaks to an eternal reality, but personal in that it arrives in the language only you can understand. For one, it may come as a moment of deep despair, when everything collapses and only silence remains. And in that silence, the signal pulses. For another, it may be joy so fierce it burns away all pretense, leaving only the raw, unfiltered sense of belonging to something infinite. However it comes, the chosen one knows. They cannot explain it logically. They cannot even always put words to it. They simply know, I have been called. This introduction weaves us into the gravity of the subject, but it is only the opening of the door. To recognize that such a signal exists is not enough. One must understand the architecture of how it works, why it arrives, and what it demands from those who hear it. One must learn to trace its currents through the myths, the sciences, the hidden knowledge, and the very heart of human longing. And perhaps most importantly, one must learn how to live after hearing it, for the signal is not the end but the beginning. As we move forward in this exploration, we will look at the patterns that underpin this rare awakening, the symbolic language through which it reveals itself, and the practical ways it reshapes the lives of those who accept its call. But for now, let this introduction settle into your spirit. Let it stir the places within you that have long been waiting for recognition. Perhaps you have already heard the signal, faintly or fully. Perhaps you are only now tuning your ears to it. In either case, know this. If you are here, listening, it is no accident. Something has led you to this moment, to these words, to this unfolding. And so, as we close this first doorway and prepare to open the next, I leave you with this thought. The difference between the chosen ones and the rest is not in the signal itself, it is in the response. The signal calls, but will you answer? If the introduction to this journey served as the unveiling of a curtain, then here, in the heart of the second section, we step beyond the threshold into the architecture of what the rare awakening signal actually means. To grasp it, one must not only look at the surface shimmer of the experience, but at the hidden mechanics beneath, the currents of truth and illusion that shape the soul's encounter with destiny. At its core, the awakening signal is about perception. Not perception in the shallow sense of seeing or hearing, but perception in its deepest form, the way consciousness tunes itself to the invisible patterns of reality. Imagine standing in a vast hall filled with countless radios, each tuned to a different frequency. Most people keep their dials locked on the channels of ordinary life, work, relationships, entertainment, survival. But the chosen ones, whether by accident or by some mysterious alignment, twist their dial ever so slightly. They land upon a station the others cannot hear. This station carries a message that seems both foreign and intimately familiar. It does not just inform, it transforms. The signal carries with it three central qualities that shape its essence. The first is disruption. The awakening does not arrive gently, it breaks apart the dream. It dissolves the false securities, the unquestioned beliefs, the habits that numb the soul. This disruption is often mistaken for crisis, and indeed it often manifests as one. People lose jobs, relationships collapse, health falters, or inner emptiness rises with unbearable intensity. Yet, beneath the turmoil lies the hidden grace. The destruction of the old is necessary for the birth of the new. The second quality is recognition. The moment the chosen one encounters the signal, they experience a strange familiarity, as though remembering something forgotten rather than discovering something new. It is like hearing your own name whispered in a crowd, like recognizing a melody you somehow already know by heart. This recognition transcends language and logic. It bypasses intellect and goes straight to the marrow of being. It says, "You belong to something greater, and you have always belonged." The third quality is responsibility. This is perhaps the most demanding aspect of the signal. It is not a passive revelation, it is a summons. To hear it is to be burdened with the awareness that you cannot go back to ignorance. You may choose denial, you may delay your response, but once the signal has struck you, your life is forever marked. The chosen ones often struggle with this, for the weight of responsibility is not light. It requires courage to walk paths others avoid, to see what others deny, and to carry truths that the world often resists. Beyond these qualities, the signal is interwoven with a deeper cosmic principle: the tension between illusion and truth. The human experience is structured in layers, much like veils. The outer veil is woven of the material world, our possessions, our identities, our societal roles. Beneath that veil lies the psychological world, the stories we tell ourselves, the patterns we inherit, the fears and desires that bind us. But beyond even that lies the realm of the eternal, the place where all separations collapse and only the essence remains. The rare awakening signal is the vibration that pierces these veils. It does not instantly dissolve them, but reveals their illusory nature. It whispers to the chosen one, "This is not all there is. You are not who you thought you were. The world is not what it seems." This realization is both liberating and destabilizing. To those who resist, it can feel like madness. To those who surrender, it becomes the seed of wisdom. What makes this even more profound is that the signal is not external. It does not come from some far-off star or divine trumpet in the clouds. Rather, it resonates from within, as though a hidden chamber of the soul has suddenly begun to ring. The chosen one realizes that what they thought was an external call was always an inner remembrance. The signal is the echo of their own eternal essence, breaking through the static of ordinary consciousness. We might then ask, why do some hear it while others do not? The answer is layered. Some souls are simply at a stage where they are ready. The soil of their inner being has been tilled by lifetimes of experience, suffering, and seeking. Others may not yet be ripe, still entangled in lessons they must live before they can awaken. It is not about superiority, but about timing. A seed cannot sprout in winter. It must wait for spring. The chosen ones are those whose season of awakening has arrived, and when it does, no force can prevent the sprouting. The illusions of the world resist this awakening, of course. Systems of power, both material and spiritual, thrive on keeping the masses asleep. An awakened individual cannot be easily manipulated, cannot be easily consumed, cannot be easily controlled. This is why the chosen ones often find themselves at odds with society, labeled as strange, rebellious, or even dangerous. Yet history shows us that every great shift, every revolution of consciousness began with those who heard the signal and dared to follow it. In this way, the rare awakening signal is less about a personal privilege and more about a cosmic necessity. It ensures that within the great tide of humanity, there are always those who remember, those who carry the torch, those who keep the deeper truths alive. Without them, civilization would collapse into its own illusions, endlessly cycling in darkness. The chosen ones are the sparks that ignite the future, the living proof that the human spirit is not bound by the limits of the visible world. As we trace these themes, we begin to see the rare awakening signal not as a mysterious event set apart from life, but as the hidden pattern woven through it. It is the hum beneath the music, the silence that frames the words, the emptiness from which all fullness emerges. To recognize it is to step out of the dream of separation and into the remembrance of unity. And yet, this is only the beginning. For while the themes and concepts outline the skeleton of this mystery, they do not yet breathe life into it. To truly understand, one must enter the realm of symbols, stories, and metaphors, those timeless languages that can carry truths too deep for literal speech. That is where we will go next. If the first two parts of this journey were like laying the foundation stones of a hidden temple, then this section is the carving of the sacred patterns upon those stones, the living stories that carry the truths and forms the mind cannot resist. For throughout history, the deepest realities have always been hidden in symbols and parables, veiled in narratives that linger in the imagination and bypass the rigid walls of logic. To truly approach the rare awakening signal, we must walk into these symbolic landscapes, for they are mirrors of the unseen. Consider the story of the night sky. To most, the stars are scattered points of light, beautiful but random, pinholes in the dark. Yet, to the chosen ones, the constellations reveal themselves. What looks to others like a meaningless scatter becomes the outline of a lion, a hunter, a river of myth stretching across eternity. This is how the awakening signal works. Where the ordinary eye sees only chaos, the awakened soul perceives pattern. It is not that the pattern was not there, it always was, but that the eyes were not yet tuned to see. A symbolic tale emerges here, one whispered in many traditions, the parable of the bell in the desert. It is said that, long ago, a great bell was cast in a hidden monastery at the edge of the world. Its sound was unlike any other, for it did not merely echo through the air but resonated within the bones of those who heard it. When struck, its tone called forth the deepest truth of whoever listened. Yet the bell was not rung often, for not all were ready. Some who heard it fell to their knees in awe, recognizing their place in the great design. Others, unable to bear the resonance, fled into madness, denying what had stirred within them. The legend says that the bell still hangs in the silence of the world, and from time to time when the hour is right, it rings again. Not through air, but through spirit. And those who are chosen, those who are ripe, hear it within themselves. This is the awakening signal in symbolic form, a bell that does not ring outside you, but within you, summoning you back to your origin. Another story, the tale of the masked traveler. In an ancient city, a stranger arrived wearing a mask of ordinary clay, blending seamlessly with the crowd. None noticed him, for he appeared as everyone else did. Yet those with sharpened sight saw something peculiar. The cracks in the mask glowed faintly, as though fire burned underneath. One by one, people began to feel a strange stirring when the traveler passed. Some ignored it, continuing their business. Others grew restless, haunted by the flicker of light beneath the mask. A few, compelled by an unknown force, followed him into the wilderness outside the city. There, the traveler removed his mask, and his face shone like the sun. Those who had followed were changed forever, for the light burned away all illusions. Yet, when they returned to the city, they too had to wear masks, lest the unready be blinded. This tale whispers a truth. The signal does not force itself on the unwilling. It is subtle, hidden beneath the clay of ordinary life, but when noticed and followed, it reveals the fire of the eternal self. Let us turn also to the symbolic landscape of dreams. Many chosen ones report dreams that feel more real than waking life. Dreams of flying above endless oceans, of standing before doors that have no key, of hearing music that cannot exist in this world. These dreams are not mere figments of imagination. They are the symbolic tongue of the awakening signal. They teach through imagery what cannot be spoken in words. The ocean becomes the infinite subconscious. The door becomes the threshold of transformation. The unearthly music becomes the vibration of the soul aligning with its true frequency. Such dreams are both message and initiation, rehearsals of awakening enacted upon the stage of sleep. But perhaps the most universal symbolic narrative is that of death and rebirth. The rare awakening signal is inseparable from this archetype. It is always a kind of death. The death of ignorance, the death of false identity, the death of sleep. And from that death arises a rebirth into vision, into authenticity, into freedom. Think of the phoenix, burning itself to ashes only to rise again radiant. Think of the seed buried in darkness, splitting apart so that life may emerge. Think of winter's stillness giving way to spring's blossoming. These symbols remind us that awakening is not about improvement or self-enhancement. It is about dissolution and transformation. Something must end for something new to begin. Even modern myths echo this eternal pattern. The hero in every great story first resists the call, clings to the known, then is thrust into a world that demands change. From Frodo leaving the Shire to Neo waking from the Matrix, the arc is always the same. The signal calls, the chosen one answers, the old self dies, and a new self is born into purpose. These narratives endure not because they are entertaining, but because they mirror the structure of the soul's awakening. They are coded reminders for those who are ready to see themselves within the tale. And so we come to a profound recognition. The awakening signal is always wrapped in story, because story is the fabric of human consciousness. The chosen ones understand that myths are not lies, but maps. To read them literally is to miss their essence. To read them symbolically is to find the compass pointing home. By walking through these narratives, the bell in the desert, the masked traveler, the phoenix, the hero's journey, we begin to see the rare awakening signal as more than an event. It is a universal story that has always been told, in every culture, in every age, disguised in different clothes but carrying the same heartbeat. To hear the signal, then, is to realize that you yourself are standing inside the myth, that your life is not random, but part of a grand tapestry that stretches beyond time. But the story cannot remain abstract. If the signal is real, if it is ringing now, then it must ripple into the everyday. It must shape how we walk through the marketplace, how we speak to strangers, how we face the pain and beauty of existence. To leave the symbols in the realm of imagination is to miss their power. And so, in our next step, we will explore how the chosen ones take this signal and integrate it into the texture of real life, transforming both themselves and the world around them. We have spoken of the signal as mystery, as myth, as a vibration that calls out only to those whose inner ears are tuned to hear. But the rare awakening signal does not exist merely as a poetic vision or an esoteric allegory. It insists on embodiment. It demands that the chosen ones who receive it carry its resonance into the dust and weight of daily life. Without this integration, the signal risks becoming a private dream, beautiful but inert. With integration, it becomes a living current that reshapes how one moves, breathes, loves, and acts in the world. When the signal first awakens within someone, it often feels disorienting. Old structures collapse, familiar patterns lose their hold, and the chosen one feels both liberated and unmoored. This is the space where illusions fall away, yet the new foundation has not fully formed. To live here requires trust, for the ground feels as though it is dissolving beneath the feet. But this is no accident. The signal is not interested in simply adding new layers to the old self. It seeks to dismantle the scaffolding of falsehood and rebuild from essence. Practically, this means that the chosen one begins to notice shifts in how they perceive ordinary interactions. The conversations that once felt comfortable now seem shallow. The distractions that once filled the hours, television, gossip, endless scrolling, begin to taste of ash. A subtle yearning arises for silence, for truth, for authenticity. This yearning cannot be ignored, because it is the soul itself pulling toward its natural state. And so the chosen one may find themselves walking away from circles that no longer nourish them, not in arrogance, but in recognition. The resonance has changed. The signal also brings with it a heightened sensitivity. The chosen one may suddenly feel the unspoken emotions in a room, the tension beneath someone's words, the hidden energies of places and people. At first, this sensitivity can feel like a burden, overwhelming and confusing, but with time, it becomes a compass. It teaches discernment. It reveals when to engage and when to step back, when to speak truth and when to remain silent. The chosen one begins to realize that this heightened perception is not weakness, it is guidance. It is how the signal continues to whisper in daily life, pointing toward alignment. Yet, the integration of this signal is not only inward. It inevitably ripples outward into action. The chosen one cannot remain indifferent to suffering once they have glimpsed the deeper unity of all life. Compassion begins to grow, not as sentimentality, but as a natural response to seeing the self in all beings. This compassion may express itself in countless forms, through art, teaching, healing, activism, quiet acts of service. But always it carries the mark of authenticity. The chosen one does not act because of obligation or recognition, but because the signal compels them. To ignore it would feel like betraying the truth itself. One of the most profound real-world implications of this integration is the shift in identity. The chosen one realizes they are not defined by roles, titles, possessions, or even personal history. They are not merely a worker, a parent, a citizen, or a collection of past events. They are something deeper, a being carrying an eternal spark woven into the fabric of the infinite. This recognition does not remove them from the world, but transforms how they engage with it. The chosen one can play the roles of life, employee, friend, leader without being trapped by them. They wear the roles lightly, as garments rather than cages. Another transformation lies in the relationship with time. The signal awakens a sense that life is not a linear chain of accidents, but a tapestry of moments aligned with a greater design. Synchronicities begin to multiply. Encounters happen by chance that carry deep meaning. Opportunities arrive at the perfect moment. The chosen one learns to trust this orchestration, to flow with the current rather than resist it. The illusion of control gives way to the art of surrender, and in that surrender, paradoxically, the chosen one discovers greater freedom than they ever had in grasping. Of course, integration is not without challenge. The chosen ones often face misunderstanding, even rejection, from those still living fully in the illusion. Friends may accuse them of changing too much. Family may not comprehend their choices. Society may label them impractical or strange. This is part of the path. The rare awakening signal separates not by superiority, but by divergence of resonance. To walk this path is to accept a certain solitude. But within that solitude lies the possibility of true connection. For when the chosen one meets another who has heard the signal, the recognition is instant, deep, and unshakable. Perhaps one of the most practical implications is that the chosen one begins to live from essence rather than from fear. Decisions are no longer dictated by anxiety about the future or by clinging to the past. They are guided by alignment with truth. This does not mean life becomes easy. There are still struggles, losses, and uncertainties. But the struggles are lived from a deeper ground. Even pain becomes teacher, even darkness becomes fertile soil. The chosen one discovers that the rare awakening signal does not remove them from life's storms, but gives them the ability to walk through the storm with clarity, dignity, and fire. The world itself is subtly transformed when chosen ones integrate the signal. They become living beacons. Without needing to preach or persuade, their very presence shifts the atmosphere around them. Others feel more alive in their company, more real, more seen. This is not because the chosen ones are flawless, but because they are authentic. They have ceased to wear masks, and in doing so, they invite others to remove theirs. This, then, is the practical miracle of the awakening signal. It begins as an invisible frequency, a private tremor within the soul, but if honored and embodied, it becomes a force that reshapes relationships, communities, and even the collective consciousness of humanity. It is the seed that grows into a tree, whose branches shelter many, whose roots nourish the soil of the world itself. Yet, even in all this, we must not forget. The signal is not merely to be understood or admired. It is to be lived. The chosen ones are not spectators of truth, but participants in it. Their lives become the continuation of the myth, the unfolding of the story in real time. To live this way is both burden and blessing, both crucifixion and resurrection. It is to stand as a bridge between the world as it is and the world as it could be. And now, as we near the end of this exploration, we arrive at the final movement, the conclusion and the transformational call. For no journey such as this can end in theory alone. It must end with the stirring of decision, the invitation to embody what has been revealed. The rare awakening signal is not merely a concept to be admired, nor a poetic thread to be tucked away in memory. It is, and always has been, a summons. To hear it is to stand at the edge of two worlds, the familiar landscape of illusion that beckons you to remain asleep, and the uncharted horizon of truth that demands you rise. This is not an easy crossing. It is not for the faint-hearted. Yet, it is the crossing for which your soul was prepared long before your body drew its first breath. In truth, every chosen one faces the same question. What will you do now that you have heard? Because once the signal has stirred your bones, ignorance is no longer an option. The illusions may still tempt you, the comforts of forgetting may still sing their siren song, but deep within you a fire has been lit, and no matter how you try to smother it, its glow will return. The chosen ones are separated not by hearing the signal alone, but by answering it. Answering is not always dramatic. It is not always about renouncing all you own, climbing mountains, or entering caves. Sometimes it is about the subtle shifts, the way you choose honesty when falsehood would have been easier, the way you extend compassion in a moment when bitterness would have seemed justified, the way you begin to live with presence rather than autopilot. Each of these choices is a ripple of the signal in action. Each is a declaration. I will not betray what has been awakened in me. Yet, there will also be moments that demand courage, moments when the path diverges sharply, and to remain true, you must step into uncertainty. It is in these crucibles that the chosen ones discover their strength. It is in saying yes to the unknown, yes to the call, yes to the fire, that their purpose unfolds. For the signal does not call you merely to comfort or clarity, it calls you to transformation, to rebirth, to becoming the vessel through which light enters a world so desperately in need. This is why the signal is rare. Not because it does not exist for all, but because few are willing to leave behind what must be left behind. Few are willing to exchange the safety of illusion for the risk of truth. Yet those who do, those who hear and respond, become living testaments of possibility. They are the ones who carry the vibration forward, the ones who shape the unseen into form, the ones who remind humanity of what it has forgotten. And so, if you have felt even a flicker of resonance while hearing these words, it is not by chance. The signal has reached you. It may be faint, or it may be roaring, but it is there, waiting for your response. Do not dismiss it. Do not bury it beneath distraction. Let it rise within you, let it guide you, let it unsettle you into becoming more than you believed you could be. Because here lies the ultimate truth. The separation between the chosen ones and the rest is not permanent. The chosen ones are not a fixed category, not an exclusive club. They are simply those who have awakened first, those who have heard and chosen to listen. Their role is not to hoard truth, but to live it so fully that others, still sleeping, begin to stir. In this way, the awakening spreads, not by force, not by doctrine, but by resonance. One candle lighting another, until what was once rare becomes the rising dawn of many. The transformational call, then, is simple yet absolute. Live awake. Do not shrink back into the sleep of conformity. Do not pretend you have not heard what you have heard. Do not wait for permission or validation. The world is aching for authenticity, for courage, for the fire that only awakened souls can bring. To live awake is to embody the signal, to become the very bell whose resonance shakes others into remembrance. It is to carry your light not as pride, but as offering. And so I say to you now, rise. Rise into the vastness of who you truly are. Rise into the responsibility of your calling. Rise into the role you were born to play in this cosmic unfolding, for the signal has reached you and the separation has already been made. You are no longer among the sleepers. You are among the chosen, not because you are better, but because you are ready, and readiness itself is the proof. Carry this truth into your days. Let it shape your choices, your relationships, your presence in the world. Be the one who remembers when others forget. Be the one who stays awake when others slumber. Be the one who embodies the fire of the rare awakening signal until its resonance spreads through every corner of your life and beyond. For in the end, the difference between hearing and becoming is everything. The signal has rung, the choice is yours.